Hello, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you first about change, and then I want to read to you from a passage from my book, Gracefully Unleashed, that has to do with not just how people really change. So, we're not talking band aids, we're not talking superficial, we're not talking about, oh, yes, I understand that, but I still feel bad and I'm still doing it. We're talking about real deep transformation, almost as miraculous as the birth of a baby. Almost that miraculous, come to think of it. So when when I've said this many, many times before, when you want to change the common wisdom, the conventional wisdom right now is that people tell you to think differently or feel differently. And the problem is, and I won't go into it completely right now, as Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the level at which it was created, the level of consciousness. So if you have thinking that's what, quote, limited beliefs or feelings that were created at very difficult times of your life, and then you put those feelings on situations right now, then and you try to solve those from the level of thinking, okay, don't think that way. It doesn't make sense. It's not helping you. Just think a different way. Stop having limiting beliefs. To have a different belief. It's so, as if it were so easy. Well, if it was so easy, you would have already done it, right? Or feelings. Now, a lot of times people say, okay, so trust your feelings. And I'm totally one for listening to and feeling and following intuition. The problem is that feelings were created, really intense feelings, especially feelings with a lot of no in them. And those are created when there are traumas or when you're being asked to do something that is uh, not, doesn't feel safe at that time because you're little. So now we have those feelings when we're grown up and they come unbidden and we think we can trust them. I do not believe that you can trust all your feelings because because of how they were created. I'll just give you a quick story. So when one of my clients yesterday was saying to me, I got so mad at my son, just like out of the blue, furious at him. And I said to her something like, because the situation was aggravating enough, but she was way over the top, she said. And I said, the feelings get intense like that, in my experience, it's always not just that situation, but you're being triggered. You're being triggered about an old situation, most likely a trauma. And when you're being triggered, it just stacks on that ferociousness of the anger. Usually it's anger and aggravation at somebody we love. So you can know, and she's done enough work now that she knows that those kind of feelings are not really her. She now knows not to trust them, right? So that's a more extreme example. And it is an example of you can't just trust your feelings because of how they were created. And using feelings to create change is again using the same level of consciousness, which you can't do. So, how do people really change? How do you really get to where you want? You've got a partner that you're married to or with, and you can't even find the love anymore, and you're so aggravated at them. Or you're working really hard and you have plenty of success, but you know you can't keep this up. It's too much for you. It is aging you. So, sorry, the cold is making me tear up. So, what is change really? What does it consist of? Well, one of the things that happens when we really have something that we want, and you all know this, you know what I'm about to say, is the things that we most want. We also, if we haven't gotten them yet, and they're really important to us, we're resisting. We're resisting what we say we want the most. Now, this is absolutely the human condition. So what do you do about that? So do you fight against resistance? Fight against fight? How does that make sense? You know that doesn't work. Can you think your way out of it? Not if it's deep. Can you feel your way out of it? No. Some of the feelings are inside the resistance. But the resistance is a gift. It's a compass, not a cage. So I'm going to talk to you right here. I'm going to actually read to you, as I said, I'm going to read to you from my book, Gracefully Unleashed. It's actually it's four words, but that's the way it shows up on YouTube. All right, here we go. So hang on, I got to take off my gloves because it's really cold. And I'm just going to read to you a little from the introduction, which starts out with a quote from Leonard Cohen that you probably know. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. She sat with her arms crossed, insisting she wanted to change, while everything in her posture screamed no. But she had driven an hour in traffic to get here, and she said she wanted to feel differently. I took her at her word. Her posture and the dense, energetic heaviness of her body added fuel to the no. Her no demanded attention. And I also felt the tender ache of yearning in her yes. I knew the work in front of us was to get beyond, behind, or through the wall of no. If you've ever tried to help someone who resisted your efforts, you know it's exasperating. They ask for help, so why won't they listen? The simple reason is that human beings rarely act logically. You might have noticed. Why then do we keep trying to help ourselves and others with logic? Some friends and loved ones give up and walk away. Some fearless people keep trying, but whatever the result, you know what it feels like to have someone who says yes and no at the same time. Even more important, you know what it feels like to try to wriggle out of your own locked box of no when you also want to say yes. In some systems of therapy, the work is to help a client to understand why they want to repeatedly and loudly say no instead of yes, to understand it. By the way, welcome everybody. It's great to see you here. In others, I'm reading from Gracefully Unleashed. In other systems, the therapist prescribes a symptom. They tell the client to do the resistant thing, keep saying no, in the hopes that their oppositional nature will then allow them to actually do the thing they say they want to do. And there are other body based systems which encourage the client to feel their way through. Now, hang on, I got to put on my gloves. It's so cold. Now, what about you? Have you ever known the best action for you to take and then inexplicably not been able to get yourself to do it? We all have. That's the human condition. Ironic, seemingly misguided, insanely frustrating, and rampant. From New Year's Eve resolutions, which are MIA before February, to desperate promises to be more patient and loving with our children, promises which are forgotten at the first tantrum. It's our resistance to say that is the stumbling block to change. Deal with resistance. Wait for change to walk in, sit down, and become your best friend. How? By working with your resistance on a different level of your consciousness. After almost 45 years of using traditional and non-traditional forms of therapy, I knew that this deep level of consciousness was what I and my clients craved to create deep transformation in their lives. I have had, and I still have, the privilege of and honor of working with people who sense there is more to life than what they've experienced, and who choose to do the work required to move beyond familiar old patterns that hold them back. I've always felt a responsibility to meet their desire and give them the best methodologies I could find. The quote, the difference between you and the blessed beast of your nature is what you remember of things and what things really. That's from Dr. Asen, the father of eidetic imagery. I'm going to skip ahead. So, what's different about this work? Many times, people who have done a great deal of other therapies tell me, I never knew this could happen to me. I've never had this happen before. I didn't know this was still there in me. This knowing of what is truly possible, this profound experience of the deeper self waiting for us, this is why I do this work and why I wrote this book for you. So you might want to think about the next time you notice, I really want that, and yet I'm acting as if I don't. So, for example, if you're in a coaching program with a business coach or in therapy, and you notice there are suggestions that are being made, and you think they're a good idea, and you're not doing them, or you're doing a fraction of them. I speak from experience because I've done this. Notice that. Notice the next time you feel so angry and closed down with someone you love. And that's not how you want to be, not just with them, but that's not who you are. You know you aren't that way, really. And yet, look at how you're acting. Notice that. Start to really notice the ways that you're resisting what you say you want without blaming yourself. Because, and I'll talk about this many times in future YouTubes, is that the resistance is actually a compass. It's not your cage. It's not something you need to get rid of. It's pointing you down and in to you can stop operating from the results of your history, but get below them and get back to your real self. This has been true with everyone I've worked with. If you can work with, sorry, there's all kinds of things coming off of my hat. If you can work with, if you could really, really grapple with what's underneath that aggravating resistance, you so it's not something bad about you. It's not something you're supposed to get rid of. It's really, really a gift. All right. I hope that that was meaningful to you. Thank you so much for coming. It's lovely, lovely to see you here. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.